How do the doctor and the patient communicate in a disability exam? Are there problems with communication? What can be done about them? That's the subject of this video. It was prompted by two recent comments. One person was rather upset with me, commenting that they didn't think that I'd be able to appreciate if somebody had problems with their intellect or memory, and that I spoke at too high a level in these videos. And another one was a person I think is involved in the disability exam process, who stated that disability claimants want to talk about everything except why they can't work at their disability exam. Hello, I'm John Foster. I'm a medical doctor who does Social Security disability exams, and as usual, everything I say reflects my own opinions based on my own experience and study, and not the opinions of the Social Security Administration or any other medical body. Now, at the outset, I want to emphasize something that's important. The whole purpose of a disability exam is to answer the question, can this person work or can they not work? And if they can't work, why not? So when it comes to communication, if you're the claimant having the exam, it's crucial that you explain to the doctor in your own terms why you cannot work. Now, I think the commenter who took me to task didn't quite understand what I've been through. When I was training in medical school, the city I lived in was very cosmopolitan. We had groups of people from all over the world, and many of them didn't speak English or French, the two common languages in the city where I trained. We had interpreters, but we didn't have interpreters for every language under the sun. And I learned how to do a fairly good medical history and exam using only signs. Then, after my medical training, I did 27 years of emergency medicine. In the ER, you're not seeing a carefully screened group of upper middle class educated people like you might do in a suburban private practice. You're seeing anyone who comes in through the door, and that includes people from all around, all different backgrounds, all different intellectual levels, from severely intellectually handicapped to genius level IQ, all types of employment, from street criminals such as drug dealers and prostitutes to lawyers, doctors, dentists, and university professors, and all sorts of other problems, such as people who've had serious head injuries, brain infections, bleeding in their brain, are unable to talk due to problems with their nervous system, delirious, psychotic, criminally insane, catatonic, demented with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, hallucinating, delusional, and very, very commonly intoxicated. Most people don't know that the average adult patient seen in the emergency room after midnight on weekends is drunk and or intoxicated with drugs. Therefore, I had to learn to communicate with all sorts of folks. Now, when it comes to disability exam patients, the average person that I see has a high school education. However, there's a great range. I've seen people who are illiterate, who can't read and write. The lowest level of education I've seen so far is grade 3, and I've seen quite a few people with postgraduate degrees. The most advanced was a person with 3 master's degrees. Now, I don't do formal psychological evaluations. I don't do extensive tests of intelligence, cognition, and memory. But when it appears that someone's having some trouble, I do some simple tests, because I like to get a feeling for the person and see if it appears that they have problems with their thinking and memory. Here are some of the tests that I do. The first one is, can they remember 3 words at 5 minutes? I give them 3 words to remember, have them repeat them a second time, then set a timer for 5 minutes and see how many they remember. If they remember all 3, that's normal. 2 out of 3 is borderline. 1 out of 3, they have a problem. And 0 out of 3, they have a serious problem. The most serious problem I've seen doing disability exams was a poor fellow who couldn't even repeat the words immediately after I said them. That was a very serious memory problem. Another test is orientation. I ask for their full name, the date, including the day, month, and year, and the location. Now, most people don't know the exact address, but if they seem confused, I'll ask them, is this Walmart? And if a lot of very confused people are suggestible, and if they say, yes, it's Walmart when they're at a doctor's office, I know they have a serious problem. I ask them if they know who the president is now and who was the president before the current president won. I ask them if they can tell me the most recent big holiday, or if a big holiday like Christmas or New Year's is just around the corner, can they tell me the upcoming big holiday? Then I ask them to do a few simple math and spelling questions, like what is 7 plus 8? And if they get that right, what is 18 plus 15? And can they spell world? And if they can they spell it backwards? Now here's an interesting fact, and make of it what you may. When I was in medical school, I was taught to test patients by having them do serial 7s. You took 100, subtracted 7 from it, you got the result of 93, and you kept subtracting the result, 7 from the result, all the way down as far as you could go. Being able to do serial 7s used to be normal. The average person with the average intelligence and education can do that. Nowadays, they can't, and I find that an interesting phenomenon. Now, here's something that I think clinicians might be interested in, and some patients and their family members as well. From time to time, I get a person coming in with the person to be examined, and when I start asking questions, the accompanying person starts providing all the answers. And I always interrupt them and tell them that I understand that they want to help, but I need to get a feel for the patient, get a feel for whether they have problems thinking, remembering, etc. And I get 2 reactions. When the person really does have problems with their thinking or memory, such as serious head injury, the person accompanying them always understands and agrees. And then after I've gotten the information I can from the person with the problems, I ask the accompanying person to fill in any details that have been missed. The other reaction I get is intense fury from the accompanying person. And in every single case, this has been somebody with a patient who has a functional illness, an imaginary illness. And this is what I call folie à deux in disability. The patient acts as though they're helpless, and the accompanying person does everything for them. I had such a case this year. The accompanying person got absolutely livid at me, insisting that the patient couldn't provide any useful information. And when I insisted that the patient answer my questions, it turned out that not only could they provide a complete history, they were actually quite intelligent. And the reason for the history is because I'm disrupting the fiction that the so-called disabled person is hopeless and helpless and mentally impaired. Now, another important thing is if you have a person whose native tongue is not English and their English is shaky, Social Security will provide an interpreter at no cost to you. All you have to do is notify Social Security that you need an interpreter before your disability exam. When I see a person who appears to have problems with their thinking or memory, I always put a note in my report, and I always recommend that they have a formal psychological evaluation, because a psychologist or psychiatrist will do formal mental and memory testing. Finally, it's so important to tell the doctor why you can't work in your own words. I always say, nobody ever woke up in the morning and called their boss and said, "Boss, I can't work because I have an L3-4 disc herniation." The boss would have no clue as to the significance of that, and neither would I. I've seen people with an MRI that showed L4-5 disc herniation who had no problems at all, and people who had terrible problems. Likewise, nobody ever woke up in the morning and called their boss and said, "Boss, I can't come to work today because I have spondylolysis and spondylolisthesis." Again, nobody knows the significance of that. People have woken up in the morning and called their boss and said, "Boss, I can't come to work today because my back hurts like hell. I could barely get out of bed and make it to the bathroom to pee this morning." Everybody knows what that means. The boss knows what it means, you know what it means, and I know what it means. So at your disability exam, answer the question, why can't you work, in your own language that's easy to understand, and you'll have the best chance of getting your disability claim approved. Well, I hope that's been helpful. Please comment if you like, and always remember, if it happens, it's possible.